Hello, BookTube, and welcome to Last Week in BookTube. This is a regular feature, a semi-regular feature that I do on this channel where I take some notes of my viewing on BookTube in the last week and on YouTube, and bring some things to your attention that you maybe didn't know about. It's not comprehensive in any way. I watch a lot of videos in the course of a week, BookTube and otherwise, and I'm sure there's a lot of good stuff that I missed, or that I didn't miss, but that I'm not mentioning here. And this didn't happen last week, and I'm not sure that it happened the week before that, so I'm just going back a week or so. But there's a lot of other stuff. I keep meaning to do this regularly, and it keeps getting away from me. But I have a list here of things, and as usual, we're going to go outward in concentric circles. So we will do BookTube, then we'll do broader YouTube, and then we'll do the world. And the one I want to start with, return to BookTube. Jason at Old Blues Chapter and Verse does a ramble with the yarn where he sits there and does whatever you do with yarn. Is it knitting? Is it purling? Is it crocheting? I have no idea what he's doing, but one way or another, he sits there and rambles while he's playing with the yarn. And it was great to see him again. He's been gone from BookTube for a little while. It was great also to hear him recommend the espionage action novels of Ted Bell. Well worth your time, as I heartily second those. But that was great to see. And then Jason's wife, Kelly, at Books I'm Not Reading, did the mid-year book Freakout tag, which is a tag that's been going the rounds where booktubers take stock of the fact that somehow it is June on the calendar. That strikes almost everybody as impossible. Either that it's not June, or that it's June of 2027, considering how exhausting this year has been so far. So either people think it's happened way too soon, or they think surely with all that I've been going through, that we've all been going through, it can't only be halfway through the year. But one way or another, Kelly does the mid-year book Freakout tag, and that tag is fantastic, just fantastic. It's so interesting to see what people are doing, and a whole bunch of other people did it. I jotted some of them down. Gwen C did one. Don't Have a Degree in Reading did one. The Book Refuge did one. Leo at A Little Book Life did one. And they're all I'm sure that I missed a bunch of them. I think I saw more of them than these, but they just stood out. So I will leave with these, and with everything else, I will leave links down below. And then the next video is not a mid-year book Freakout tag, and instead an author appreciation, a posthumous author appreciation, and it's a perfect example of how BookTube gets inside your head. This week, the Spanish author Carlos Ruiz Zafon died unexpectedly to the literary world. He was only in his mid-50s. His family, I guess, knew that he'd been sick for a while, but the literary world mostly did not. It caught me completely by surprise. And when I heard the news, thanks to BookTube, the very first thing I thought was, oh, Juan at Just Juan Reader is going to be really hit by this, because Zafon is one of his favorite writers. He's waxed about him, praised him endlessly on his channel, and sure enough, Juan made a video. And that is the wonderful thing about BookTube, is that it completely personalizes all of this reading stuff that wouldn't be personal otherwise. For me, wouldn't be at all. And I loved it. I loved his video on Zafon, so I'll leave a link to it. Then Nathan Knapp, K-N-A-P-P, reviews Ground Zero, which is book number 13 in F. Paul Wilson's Repairman Jack series. I think I've also reviewed Ground Zero. I've reviewed some Repairman Jack novels. They're terrific, absolutely terrific. Like Ted Bell, they are an action adventure with maybe a slight element of the supernatural thrown in. They are action adventure stories, an action adventure series that you will love. If you love that sort of thing and you haven't found this series, you're missing one that you will love. And Nathan is doing a series where he reads and does spoiler-free reviews of all of the Repairman Jack novels. So it isn't just this video. This one on Ground Zero was really good, but you should watch all of the others. And I will also leave a link to Nathan's own novel, Orphans of Liberty, which is well worth your time. If you like action thriller type fiction, he's really good at reviewing it from other people. He's not all that bad at writing it either. So I'll leave the Amazon link in case you want to throw him a purchase. Then Perks of Books got a Kindle Oasis, not the Kindle Paperwhite that I showed you on this channel. The Oasis is wider, has a weird form function that has it's sort of a handheld place. It's not an even bezel along the bottom. It's got a plaque on one side that makes it easy to hold on to when you're reading, and it has the ability to warm up the pages so that they're not a flat phosphorescent white. They can you can make the reading texture of the page warmer, and therefore, according to the specs anyway, easier on your eyes to read. And she fell in love with it, and her video is a very touching plea for everybody who can to try e-reading. She mentions how eco-friendly it is, but I don't know. Watching the video, I didn't get the impression that that was foremost on her mind. I think the thing that really blew her away is the thing that's blown me away many times, which is how enjoyable it is. You don't expect that. If you're a dyed-in-the-wool printed book reader, you think, oh, this is going to be awful. It's going to be so cold and antiseptic. And it's not. It's not at all. All of the wonderful parts of reading survive the transition to electronic reading. All of them do. The immersion, the wonder, all of that. And none of the negative parts do. None of them do. So I recommend the video for those of you who may be considering a Kindle Oasis, but also for those of you who might just want one more nudge towards embracing this, because that's what it is. It's really just a squee of praise to electronic books. Then we have the channel Ami1649, otherwise known as Ivan's Nightmare. The Steve services for giving an actually good title to a book instead of the terrible title that its author or its publisher gave extends to titling BookTube channels, and is likewise free and available 24 hours a day. I just thought I'd mention that, apropos of nothing. But anyway, that channel has a video that's titled, "Has Anyone Read Boswell's Life of Johnson?" And it is, the answer to that question, of course, is yes. And the video is him laying the groundwork for a read-along, a massive, ambitious read-along of this Megillah of a book in July that I will be doing with Matthew of the Mayberry Book Club. We'll be reading Boswell's Life of Johnson in July. 250 pages a week, I think, will get us thereabouts, somewhere close to the end. And this video is designed to sort of lay the groundwork for that, to sort of whet your appetite. And you should watch it, because as many videos as you need to help you to get over the intimidation factor of something that's this big is just fine. Take as many of them as you need. Although I think the first 30 pages of the book itself will work just as well to whet your appetite. And then lastly, Alex at What Page Are You On? Spends a video gushing about Exciting Times by Naoise Dolan, saying that it's his favorite new novel of the year, and then fangirling on about why that is. Alex is a very smart young man and a very good reader of contemporary fiction. Very smart, very good reader of contemporary fiction. And even the smartest and best readers of contemporary fiction can occasionally make mistakes or be grotesquely in error. Exciting Times is actually excruciatingly bad. It's excruciatingly dull. And I believe that the only reason that it made Alex blossom towards the sun is because he saw a lot of himself in it. I think that's why, that explains a lot of the popularity of, for instance, Sally Rooney, who is this is the exact same kind of thing. Exactly the same kind of thing. I don't think it has anything to do with literary merit, but I could be wrong. I will reread it in 100 years and see if my opinion has changed. But I thought I'd give you a link to Alex's video in case he convinces you. Because wouldn't that be good for the author? If he convinces you that this is a book you might enjoy. I can't only tell you about reviews of books that I myself liked, right? I have to tell you also about reviews that I liked, whether I liked the book or not. In this case, Alex is egregiously mistaken. Egregiously so. So much so that I almost suspect that he was perhaps struck by falling masonry right before he made the video, except he seems okay in the video, except that his judgment has gone out the window like Brown's cows. This was awesome. Oh, it was so incredible. It was so great. Non-existent characters, completely flat prose, nothing in the way of plot, no conclusion, no artistry whatsoever, just a completely DOA, tag on the toe reading experience. And yet, he was over the moon about it. So you watch his video, give it a like. Remember, if you're watching a video, you like the video. The person who's made this content for free to entertain you. So before they say a word, in Alex's case, a badly misguided word, before they say a word, you hit that like button. Like is not that you agree with the video person. Like is not that you agree with them. You don't wait until the end of the video to like it. What if they pass the test? You hit like as soon as it starts because they have made something for you to enjoy for free without you asking, okay? So go to his video and watch it, but like it first. And then see whether or not he can convince you to waste your money on this piece of poop. But anyway, that was all some stuff from BookTube. And we want to go one level out to YouTube. And for general YouTube, the first thing I want to mention, talk about squeeing and fangirling. If whatever critical advantage I had in that last bit is probably going to be squandered here. But the trailer for Deep Blue Sea 3 dropped, as the kids say, and it is every bit as great as you would expect it to be. Once again, as in most shark movies, bull sharks become the villain of the piece, because it has trickled through the coke-addled minds of a lot of Hollywood screenwriters that bull sharks have been known to kill people, and that they can kill people in the ocean and also in freshwater. They can go upstream. The Matawan Creek shark attacks were almost certainly a bull shark. Because even a juvenile great white shark, which is kind of what the shark looks like in according to eyewitnesses for that famous multi-person shark fatality event, the eyewitnesses make it look more like a juvenile great white than a bull shark, but the thing spends a lot of time up the Matawan Creek, and a great white shark would probably not want to do that. Even an adolescent might not want to do that, whereas a bull shark would think nothing of it. So, but oh my, the trailer is wonderful. It makes me want to see the movie. The one thing I don't know about it is whether or not the movie will appear in movie theaters. I can't imagine that it will. So it will show up on a streaming service. I have 2 out of 20 of those, so I'll have to hope. Then the next video is thorny. It's political. So that's an advisory for you. If you're not interested in that sort of thing, if it gets your blood pressure up, then don't watch it by all means. But it's a channel that I absolutely love. It's called the channel is called Rose of Dawn. And she is a fantastic commentator on society and politics just in general. I love her icy cold British wit. I just love it. But also her intelligence. It's just a fantastic channel to watch. And of course her concentration is trans issues, trans rights. And this particular video is about the state of trans safety in the world, and some narratives that you may have heard on that subject that she disagrees with. And she's always impressive to watch. I don't know if I've ever ran around on this channel before, and I wanted to make sure that I did. It's of course, because it's dealing with, with gender politics in modern society, that might not be your cup of tea. But if you find it interesting, if you like that sort of thing, definitely bookmark her channel, definitely subscribe. And lastly, last of the YouTube channels is a bit of a defeat for me on a personal level. You know how it is. I don't know, most of you are introverts, so you probably don't know how it is. But sometimes if you're hanging out with another booktuber, I don't know if you've ever done that, but sometimes when you are, you just have the urge to share channels that you really like and see if maybe you can get them another fan. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It always kills me when it doesn't work. And the opportunity that I often had to do that was up at the old farmhouse in Vermont when I would visit Mark Richardson of Richardson Reads, and show him things. I would always try. I would find these channels. There are some channels, some YouTube channels, not BookTube channels, some YouTube channels that I know he would like if he watched maybe 10 videos, maybe to get a real feel for them instead of just one video. But it's almost been invariable that every time I try to sell him on a new YouTube channel, the latest video that person has uploaded is a disastrous flop. Even by my standards, I would call it a disastrous failure. So I'm sitting there on the couch with him. I don't know if you've ever watched any of Mark's videos, but when storm clouds gather on his face, they're really bad. They're New England nor'easters, and not just normal storm clouds. And I would sit there on the couch saying, huh? And he'd just be... And this channel is one of those. There's a guy named Bob Gymlan, a young guy named Bob Gymlan, who has the best Sasquatch-related YouTube channel of them all. There are plenty of others, but his is the best. He is the smartest. He is the most eloquent. He is the best at reading the evidence not only evidence in modern times, but also documentary evidence from the past. He's really good at seeing what's not said. He's really good at seeing what you're not looking at. I have found him interesting. He did a video, his latest video, when I was up at the old farmhouse and tried to convince Mark Richardson to watch him, was an abysmal failure. He wandered off into all sorts of weird territory and didn't make any sense at all. So it was a bit of a defeat. I don't think Mark will ever go back to Bob Gymlan. But Bob Gymlan did a video just recently that was him right in his wheelhouse. And this was the Shipton Yeti prince, an explorer in the Himalayas who found prints in the sand. Documented them. This was decades and decades ago, but he documented them to the best of the ability at the time. He had all sorts of equipment, all sorts of measurement equipment, and a camera, and plenty of witnesses. And this is the best analysis of the Shipton prints that I've ever seen. I don't think they're real myself. I think they're fairly obviously fake, but it's great to watch Bob Gymlan just go over what is known about them and what is known about Shipton and what is known about the whole area. If you're interested in intelligent Sasquatch content, I'm going to recommend this video. I just hope I have more luck with you than I did with Mark. And then we'll finish out with the broadest possible concentric circle, which is the world. And the world has been in rough shape in the last 2 weeks. It's been weeks now since George Floyd was murdered on camera by the Minneapolis Police Department, begging for his life. And you're able to see it clear as day. It's not like it's happening in the distance. It's not grainy. There's no night footage. It's nothing like that. You're right up close, 15 feet away, watching this man get executed and watching him know that he's being executed, begging for his life and telling people, telling bystanders, they are killing me. They are going to kill me. And they did. And unfortunately, that's not a rare event in America where cops kill black people for literally no reason at all. Shoot them dead in their backyard when they're flimming through their phone. Shoot them dead when they're jogging on the street. Shoot them dead when they're asleep in their beds. Shoot them dead for no reason at all. You got a broken tail light. In a lot of parts of the American West and Northern California and whatnot, a cop who pulls over a black driver with a broken tail light, a completely minor offense, that's often handled. White people often just get that fixed, and then you're on your way. No paperwork whatsoever. But in most parts of the country, cop pulling over a black driver will say, you got a broken taillight, son. And in the American South, a cop pulling over a black driver will say, you got a broken taillight, boy. Those of you who are not from America, maybe are not familiar with American racism, maybe won't know how explosive that term is. And it's absolutely routine for cops in the American South to say that, you got a broken taillight, boy. And when you're driving a car and you just happen to have a broken taillight, if you're black, the cop is not going to say, get that taken care of, have a nice day. Instead, the cop is going to say, do you have any contraband in the car? I think I smell something funny. Step out of the car. Lean against the car. Is that your kid in the back? Can you prove that that's your kid? Is this maybe a kidnapping? Do you have a weapon? Do you have anything I can mistake for a weapon? Your life is in danger. It's as far away from a cop saying, get that fixed, would you, as is possible to imagine. You could die. Easily die. Just slaughtered. For no reason whatsoever except the cop is bored or thoroughly DNA racist, and almost no redress. In the pre-George Floyd world, almost no redress. Happened routinely. George Floyd's death has caused an enormous backlash in American society. Protests are still going on in major cities. Peaceful, extremely large protests in major cities. And it has put pressure on police departments all over the country to reform, to clean house. Now, it has caused a backlash. One of the ugliest backlashes that it has caused has gotten almost no attention in the mainstream media in America. And that is a rash of lynchings. And I'm not being metaphorical. Actual lynchings. Black men have been found hanging, and municipal authorities, I think we're up to 6. Municipal authorities have at first tried to hide that fact and then called them suicides. Which is how a totally corrupt municipal police department will act if they are unaccustomed to being to any kind of accountability. They will not only be obviously duplicitous, but arrogant about it. So you have a young black man, a 21-year-old black man who had only been a happy family member, productively employed, a friend to everyone, budding artistic career. No sign whatsoever from anyone of suicide. You find him hanging in a public park, 21 feet above the ground, with no ladder and no way to climb the tree. No branches to climb the tree. And you know, you're a police department in California or wherever, and you know perfectly well that the public knows all of those details, knows, in other words, that this certainly was not a suicide, and you're calling it that anyway, not because you think it is, not because you think it's in any way plausible, but just as a big F you to anyone who cares. You know what you're going to do. And your cops are rogue. They have watched these protests for the last 3 weeks in America, and it's made them really mad. Not at the racist members of their own department, but at the uppity members of the civilians that get in their way. And we'll show you. We'll show you. You don't like violence? Here's some violence for you. And there won't be any accountability. You don't like violence in terms of kneeling on someone's neck. How about we go back to the 1890s and show you that kind of violence? It's revolting. I have a feeling that the exact same number of people are involved. I don't think this is a copycat thing at all, and sooner or later it will burst onto the public awareness that black men are being lynched in America, and they're being lynched in America in retribution for these protests that are all over the country. One way or another, whether or not that surfaces, as the 21st century puts it, in the public awareness in upcoming weeks, I don't know. But one way or another, the protests are everywhere. They are certainly happening in your own hometown. And they've also been echoed with outrage on social media. Here on BookTube, countless videos by white and people of color booktubers saying, here are things that you can do. Here are things that you can do. You can, for instance, follow and champion black booktubers. You can read more books by authors who aren't white. You can do all sorts of that. Now, of course, since tempers are raised and people are angry, there's been a lot of stuff that's been said that's unworthy as well. and you have to resist that. You just do. Unless you just have to resist that. You have to resist answering racism with racism. Your response to this general raising of consciousness, that's really what this is. What George Floyd's murder did is raise the consciousness. The trick about raised consciousness is to keep it raised. And in the frayed nerves of raising that consciousness, plenty of people have said you should read more authors of color. Look at your own reading. How small is that percentage? Maybe you could get that up a little. Learn from different viewpoints, different ways of looking at the world, different styles of writing fiction and nonfiction. And there have been other voices that said all fiction, all nonfiction written by white people is bad, that all white people are bad, that all white people are racist. Extreme reactions like that, you just have to guard against. They're natural when tempers are high, when nerves are frayed. But in addition to, there's been mercifully very little of that on BookTube. But there has been a lot of outrage, a lot of people just more emotionally raw videos than you ever see from some of these booktubers coming on and saying, I am outraged. This is incredible what I am seeing. Because it wasn't just one murder in Minneapolis. It was the way the police acted in the immediate wake of that in 2 weeks of unbelievable police brutality. All of it caught on camera. Even when it isn't completely violent, it's still completely unacceptable. It's completely illegal. Just the other day, Donald Trump had a rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And famously, I'm sure you might have seen it on the news, there was a woman in line who had a ticket. She bought a ticket and waited in line for this event. She was not a Trump fan, and she had a t-shirt on that said, I can't breathe. And the police in Tulsa dragged her away. They arrested her. They acted like Donald Trump's security force instead of the police. She wasn't breaking any law whatsoever. And she wasn't carpetbagging, to use a loaded term. She had a ticket to the event. They just didn't like what her t-shirt said. That's all. So we have a long, long way to go, but everyone has been able to watch those things, and it's made people's blood boil. This, not that polling is ever an answer to anything, but this whole civil unrest, that's what this is. This whole cultural awakening has enormous public support across the board. And it's caused a lot of people to express outrage in the 2 weeks since I did last week in BookTube video, and including on BookTube. And a lot of those people have vowed to do something about it. And some of those vows, again, with the nerves frayed, some of the less charitable responses to those vows have used a word. One particular word has come up over and over again among the frontline resistors to those newcomers. And that word was performative. Is your objection, is your outrage performative? And in this context, it's a very pejorative thing. It means, are you only doing this to seem like you're doing it? Are you only doing this to play act at being outraged? And then you're going to go right back to being complacent. And here on Last Week in BookTube, to finish up, I want to ask you, was your outrage performative? Did you go back, are you back to being complacent? At the time that all of this was blowing up originally, a lot of you were asking me, what can I possibly do? What should I do? I'm being inundated on my social media feeds by different petitions and movements and areas to donate for bail and whatnot. I don't know what to do. I have limited resources, after all. It's a gigantic economic depression. I have limited resources. I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. And I didn't have any answers. I said, start small. Research and start small. Figure out exactly what aspect of this bothers you the most and work towards changing it. The key here being work towards changing it. Your outrage doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything at all. It doesn't help anybody. You have to do something with your outrage. Otherwise, your outrage is performative. So my question to end our Last Week in BookTube is, did you do anything with your outrage? Did you? You were outraged at the time. So was I. So was everybody. Did you do anything with it? Did you, for instance, research the budget of your own police department? It's a public document in America. You can get that information. Did their budget increase by 70% in the last 10 years? You know perfectly well your crime rate didn't increase 70% in the last 10 years. So if their budget increased, that's something you should look at, right? That's something that maybe you want to ask your representative about. You could break that down as well. I'm sure that you could break that down. Where did that money go? Did it go to a tank? In Eugene, Oregon? With no crime whatsoever to speak of? Did it go to a tank? Does your police department own a tank that originally deployed in Iraq? I don't think you would agree with that, right? I think you would probably say they shouldn't have a tank. Did you find out? Did you research? And if you found out they did you object to it? I guarantee you there's a petition going around not to defund the police. Keep in mind that is just a bumper sticker. It fits on a bumper sticker. That does not mean get rid of police departments, although sometimes you have to throw out the barrel. There are so many rotten apples and just start over. What that means, though, is that no police department needs tanks. They don't need shoulder launchers. They don't need bazookas. They don't need anything like that. Does your police department have them? That's easy for you to find out, and it's easy for you to object to. There will be petitions to get rid of that, to take your police department's $2 billion budget and reduce it to $1 million. There will be petitions to do that. If your police department has a $2 billion budget, I guarantee you that you are at least no more than 2 degrees of separation away from a public school employee of some kind who's paying for erasers and pencils with their own money. That also comes out of that same budget. I bet they could use a lot of that money. A lot of that $2 billion. That is easy to do. Did you do that? Did you maybe go onto Google and type in Black Lives Matter petitions and then your neighborhood? So that you could at least start to research them. Did you do that? Have you done that? Did you do anything with your outrage? And if the answer is no, I'm not persecuting you, I'm not yelling at you, but if the answer is no, I want you to understand something. Because I bridle at this term myself. And so I understand probably a lot of you do as well. A lot of people bridle at the term white privilege. I bridle at it myself. I'm in Boston no more than 4 generations ago. There were signs saying no Irish need apply. In the living memory of people who are alive in Boston today, they can remember seeing those signs all throughout the American Northeast. And probably you don't have $10,000 in your savings account. Probably you don't have a second home. So probably you bridle a little when somebody accuses you of having white privilege. And some of the people who make those accusations are, again, just having their nerves frayed raw. They're being abrasive because they don't know how else to channel their anger. But I want to point out to you something. If you are white and you felt outraged at the murder of George Floyd and at the protests that followed, all the police brutality that you could see, police with truncheons, police driving SUVs into crowds of protesters, peaceful protesters. If you felt outraged by that, and you thought, I could Google petitions in my neighborhood, I could Google whether or not there's an activist group in my neighborhood where I will be able to watch where my money is being spent so I won't be, paying for something that I don't want, or I could Google my police budget and find out what exactly my tax dollars are going to. If you thought of doing that at the height of that outrage, and then you decided, well, I've got work, and grocery shopping is such a pain because you have to wear a mask and you have to keep your social distance, and it's really doing a number on my reading and whatnot, and it just sort of slipped out of your mind. That's a privilege you have that a black person in this country doesn't have. And that's white privilege. That is in its most viable sense, that's what white privilege is. You have the ability, you have the freedom to stop thinking about this thing. Because if you get pulled over with a broken taillight, you're not going to die. You're not going to spend a minute in prison. You're not going to be humiliated in front of your loved ones. Nothing like that is going to happen. And if you're black in this country, you don't know. You don't have any idea. And it doesn't have to be you doing anything. You don't have to be driving with a broken taillight or otherwise. You can be completely minding your own business. You go to the latest Star Wars movie. Have the time of your life. Love it. You're with a bunch of friends. All you're thinking about at the climax of the movie is God Almighty. The comments section and all my favorite YouTube channels are going to be going crazy about this movie. I can't wait to get home, log on, and tell everybody what I think. Maybe make a blog post. Maybe make a video. That's all you're thinking of when you leave the theater. And that's all your friends are thinking about too. But they get to go on thinking about it, and you don't. Because you're black. And they're not. They get to go home and immediately get about doing that. You have to make it home. You have to make it home. So you're eager to get back to your computer and make your reaction video, and maybe, let's say, by a fraction of a hair, you run a yellow light. Type of thing that a cop waiting behind the donut shop in the shadows wouldn't think twice about. Wouldn't think serious. But with you, that cop pulls you over for running a red light, which you didn't do, but came close. You could die. Age 22, no blog posts, no videos, no rest of the evening, no nothing. You could die. Right then. What I'm talking about here, not meaning to accuse anything. I don't want to be at that frayed nerve edge. But if you don't have to think about that, that's a privilege. And that's white privilege. And if you got outraged by the last month, when it was at its peak, when every YouTube video and BookTube video that you watched was about that subject, if you got outraged and angry, and then you didn't do anything about it, then your outrage was performative. And the thing I want to tell you to end this up, I've gone on way too long, the thing I want to tell you to end this out on a positive note is that it doesn't have to stay that way. All the avenues of action that were open to you when you were outraged are still open to you. Like I mentioned, the only way that a raising of consciousness will have a long-term effect is if it stays raised. And that will rely on you. It will. It will rely on each of us. Everybody has to do that. Otherwise, things just sink back into the status quo. Do you really want to look yourself in the mirror a year from now? If a year from now we have more video footage? Do you really want to do that? This is not a problem that's going away. It needs to be fixed on a societal level. And you can help. And you should. That's what I want to end this last week in BookTube video is to say, if your outrage in the last 3 weeks was, in fact, performative, you can change that. You're not going to like hearing it called performative. Of course you're not. It's going to make you uncomfortable. It's going to make you feel like you yourself are insincere. And it doesn't need to. It doesn't need to. You don't have to be marching in the streets. There's plenty that you can do that isn't marching in the streets that will help a lot. And it doesn't require a whole lot of money. There are a whole bunch of steps that you can take. Google your local area. Find out where the resistance is. what the petitions are, what the movements are, maybe a candidate who's up for election on the local level. That's where these things will change. Maybe that candidate is running on police reform. Maybe vote for them. Maybe spread the word about them. And also investigate your local police. How long are they trained? What's their closure rate for cases involving homicide, for cases involving theft, for cases involving aggravated assault? What's their closure rate? Out of 100% of the cases that they get on, let's say, aggravated assault, how many do they solve? 10%? 20%? 30%? How good is your police department? You could research all of that, and you should. You should. The outrage peaked in its virulence, but the issue isn't going anywhere unless we get rid of it. So that's how I want to end last week in BookTube, is with a little good-natured nudging. That if you didn't do anything, if life took over and you just, I've got one thing and the other, I've got kids at home, they're not at school, I've been furloughed or whatever, I do care about this, but I just didn't get to it. Get to it. It's as important as anything else, so get to it. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up this last week in BookTube. I promise they won't all end on homily. I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.